As we transition into looking at the Congo, the situation that's going on in the Congo right now, we touched on it last week in regards to Macron visiting the Congo and meeting with President Tshisekedi in regards to the ongoing conflict with M23, the terrorist group, the sponsored terrorist group that has been sponsored by Rwanda, even though Rwanda continues to deny its support for this group. Other countries and the UN has even come in and done independent research and found evidence that proves that they have been supporting this group. When we look at the bloc called the East African Community, it consists of 7 countries: South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Kenya, Congo, and Burundi. Those 7 countries form this bloc to help support the sustainability of the countries that exist inside of this agreement. So last November, we saw where Kenya deployed about 9,000 troops. President Ruto deployed about 9,000 troops to go to the Congo to help fight against uh, this war that's been waging there in the Kivu province in the Goma region. And we also saw Uganda send troops into the Congo. Um, but on top of those countries, we've also seen Burundi has sent troops there. South Sudan has sent troops there. And ironically, even Rwanda has sent troops there, even though they're the ones who are supporting M23. Now, the Rwandan troops have recently, some of them have recently been expelled at the borders due to the fact that they believe that they're continuously bringing in weapons and finances for the M23 rebels. Now, when we look at this block, now outside of this block, you have Angola, who recently announced the other day that they will also be sending troops into the Congo. And this is where it starts to become just a local war to now involving at least 6 or 7 outside African countries deploying troops into the Congo to try to resolve the situation. And even though we definitely want, African people to resolve African problems, we have to keep an eye on this from growing into a higher escalated war that can cause a lot of bloodshed. Uh, it seems as though the time of the support from the West for Kagame has started to run out. It seems as though now you have the U.S. was speaking out directly against Rwanda and its role in the situation. And we know, and we've seen in the past, when the Western countries decide that they no longer need your services, then quickly you will either become excommunicated or you will be assassinated or exiled. And we've seen that happen and repeat itself time and time again. We saw it with Saddam Hussein. We saw it with Muammar Gaddafi. We saw it with Maurice Bishop, and we're seeing it now. I believe start to take place with Kagame. Now, if these African countries are successful with ending the uh, the war in the Congo, then maybe there's a possibility that Kagame can escape this. But Rwanda doesn't seem to be backing down due to the fact that it gets so many resources out of the Congo that they become dependent upon. So, this is something that could escalate into a quote unquote world war of Africa if we start to see more countries start to step in. Who knows if Ethiopia will deploy troops there, or if we'll see either some West African countries start to possibly deploy troops to the Congo region.
Well, it would actually be the third time if we're just talking about African countries. You really could consider the overthrow of Lumumba and the role of Africans in supporting the European powers, the United States and the European powers who were involved in the overthrow and assassination of Patrice Lumumba in the 1960-1961 time frame. The Congo has already experienced wars. The first war uh, between like 1996 and 1998, and then a second war uh, that involved several countries in the early 2000s. Angola, Zimbabwe, Burundi, Rwanda, several countries were involved in these wars, and so we hope it doesn't escalate to that point, because when Dr. William Ruto, the president of Kenya, and the other presidents uh, of the East African community, when they agreed to send troops into the Congo, they were doing so based on an African Union mandate to bring about peace and security on the African continent. And, I think that in my opinion, it's just because of the utter brilliance of a man like Dr. Ruto, who recognizes the historical significance of this landmass that we call the Democratic Republic of the Congo, being the most important landmass on the African continent, which then makes it the most important landmass on the planet Earth. And I think they realize that until there is some peace and stability in the Congo, then all of Africa, to a certain extent, is vulnerable to attacks, from various different regions and different forces. So they made the decision to assist the DRC, which became a member of the East African community. Give us a community. Typically, the DRC has been considered to be part of Central Africa. Um, when they became a member, they raised this issue of how are M23 and these other groups, and there are several groups, the Mai, the ADF, Allied Democratic Forces, which initially started to overthrow the government of Museveni in Uganda, but then realized that they could get rich if they were able to take the minerals, the vast mineral resources out of the Eastern Congo. You have numerous groups, but M23 is certainly the most dangerous of these terrorist organizations. And so that was the objective. The objective was we must have peace and stability because it can be beneficial to the entire African continent, beneficial to the liberation and empowerment of African people if African people can control these resources, rather than just being controlled by, one or two, uh, kleptocrats, in the tradition of Joseph Mobutu, kleptocracies, who are just ripping the country off, exploiting the people, and enriching themselves. In the case of Rwanda, of course, its economy, some people call it the Singapore of Africa, but it's based on the mineral resources that it gets out of the Eastern Congo. So uh, we're hoping that they will that it will simply be that type of situation where they're just able to get these terrorist organizations eradicated or at least neutralized, and so that African people can live in peace. Millions of African people have been killed, displaced, families destroyed, by this violence, all in the name of extracting mineral resources which are needed, primarily in the European powers, by the European powers and the multinational corporations. Although a lot of these minerals are in fact shipped to China, and then refined into their final products before being becoming part of assemblies that make computers and cell phones and things like that. So I do think when we look at the first and second Congo wars, which is sometimes called Africa's first world wars, uh, Rwanda is more isolated now than it was then. In order to be able to, continue, this rampage that disrupts the peace and security for the massive African people, in that particular region of Africa. So, we'll see how it works out. But I was actually hoping that by now that the East African community military force would have some positive news. But this organization, the M23 organization, terrorist organization, is ruthless. They are ruthless, and they are experienced fighters. And what a shame that we spend all of these lives and all of these resources killing one another, killing one another. So yeah, I'm with you. Let's hope that the East African community can achieve success, because it would be beneficial to the entire African world.